What's the one shocking secret you've been hiding that would make everyone despise you if it ever came out? I got my coworker pregnant, and I still haven't told my wife. My wife and I will have been together for 12 years this April. About 18 months ago, she suggested that we try being polyamorous. At first, I was pretty angry that she even brought it up. At that time, we were only doing it about once a month, and it had been that way for several years, which left me feeling frustrated. She often rejected my advances, and I had grown somewhat embittered. Eventually, I softened to the idea, and we agreed to give it a try. As I mentioned, I was a little hesitant at first, but overall, it has been going really well. I'm not sure if it's because I'm older and more successful, or because I have a wife at home and not much to lose, but I've been having a lot of success with women. One of the women I've been seeing is my friend and co-worker, Sarah, not her real name. She divorced her husband sometime last year, and we started seeing each other a few months later. She often invites me over after work, and we usually spend about an hour just playing around. In late January, Sarah told me that she was pregnant. She said she hasn't been seeing anyone else, so it must be mine. Today, she asked me if I loved her, and I waffled a bit, telling her that I cared about her, which I do. I'm really not sure what to do. I still haven't told my wife because I'm hoping Sarah will choose to have an abortion. I did want kids when I was younger, but my wife never wanted any, so we agreed not to. This makes the situation even more complicated. If she has the child, I don't know how I'm supposed to pretend that nothing happened. I'm feeling very stressed about all of this. Story 2. My sister-in-law's mother and I meet up in secret. It all started before my brother married his current wife. One night, we were having some beers and talking, and he mentioned that his soon-to-be mother-in-law was getting a divorce. Half joking, he told me I should pursue her. His fiancée couldn't stand her stepfather and actually encouraged the idea. The next weekend, I was invited over and met her for the first time. There was immediate chemistry. She was confident, charismatic, and very flirtatious. One thing led to another, and we ended up getting involved that night. From there, things escalated quickly. For the next several months leading up to the wedding, we kept seeing each other regularly. She would visit me during my lunch break, and we'd find whatever private moment we could together. The connection was intense and constant. At the wedding reception, we even slipped away for a bit, still caught up in the excitement of the whole situation. My brother and sister-in-law knew what was going on and mostly stayed out of it. No one else knew. She preferred not to use condoms, so we didn't. Things occasionally got a bit reckless, and we even took a few private photos and videos together. Everything came to a head when her youngest son, who was 18 at the time, went to use her phone. It opened to a message containing a very explicit photo. He completely lost it. Thankfully, she had my number saved under a woman's name. Eventually, my sister-in-law found out that her younger brother had seen something inappropriate on their mom's phone. She put two and two together and realized what had been happening. She didn't see the image herself, but she recognized enough to know it involved me. She confronted me and asked me to stop seeing her mom. I told her I would. Honestly, we never actually stopped. We've kept this secret for more than 5 years. We've each had relationships with other people during that time, and whenever those ended, we would fall right back into our old pattern. I don't know what it is, but we can't seem to stay away from each other. At family events, no one suspects anything, but the moment we're away from everyone else, the chemistry comes right back. She still visits me several times a week, telling her family she's meeting friends, when in reality she's coming to see me. I'm torn. She's funny, understanding, outgoing, adventurous, attractive, and just a genuinely good person. We both know we can't date, and we both know we can't let the secret out, but we also can't seem to stop seeing each other. Story 3. I did it with my boyfriend's dad. His dad died a few months ago, and honestly, this is going with me to the grave. It would ruin our relationship, and even if we survived it, his view of his dad's character and his parents' marriage would be altered. I can't do that to him, and frankly, the selfish part of me doesn't want to tell him either. It was 2 years ago, when I was 18. My boyfriend was on a week-long retreat, and I went over to their house to help his mom with a small DIY project. She had to run an errand but told me I could stay and hang out. She would be back soon, and we could finish up later. So I was at their house, basically alone. Not for the first time, since I spent a lot of time there. I decided to go up to my boyfriend's room to borrow something, and his dad happened to see me on the stairs. He invited me into the library at their office where he was working on something, and then, I don't know, it escalated. It was a mistake. I don't know why I did it. He thought it was a mistake too, and we kind of agreed not to tell my boyfriend ever, explicitly acknowledging that as our agreement. Life moved on. Now his dad is dead, and I'm left with my stupid teenage secret. Edit. To clarify, we got together when we were sophomores in high school, about 4.5 years ago, and we're now juniors in college. I had never cheated before then, and I haven't cheated since. Story 4. Living a double life is killing me, and I deserve it. I figured I might as well spill it all here. For the past 6 months, I've been living 2 lives. I was dating a girl, let's call her Jen, for about a year. Things were going okay, but she traveled a lot, and the relationship started to feel more like a friendship. I broke it off and started dating another girl. Let's call her Meg. Meg was so much more like me. We had a ton in common. We laughed at the same things. Every moment with her felt fun, and our intimate moments were incredible. The only issue was that Meg did some things that made me think she wasn't ready for a serious relationship. I won't go into the details, but in hindsight, they weren't really major, or at least nothing she didn't change once we started dating. I dated Meg for about a month, but I kept feeling like she might hurt me, or that she was too outgoing for me. She was more of a partier and wanted to go out and drink a bit too much for my taste. I ended up secretly getting back together with Jen, and shortly thereafter we moved to another state together. I lied to Meg about moving with Jen, telling her I moved alone to a different state for an incredible job offer. Jen is incredibly mature, kind, sweet, and caring. The kind of girl who will never let you fail and will do anything for you. But with Jen, it's always felt like okay or good, never amazing. There's just no passion anymore. For the past 6 months, I've been dating Meg long distance, seeing her once a month when I can, and lying about my entire life. Things with Jen are fine, but I wake up every day thinking of Meg. I want so badly to quit my job and move back to be with Meg, but I can't. I've been trying to find work and haven't had any luck, and I know my life would fall apart if I quit and ended up jobless just to be with her, but at the same time, I feel like I'm dying a little every day that I'm stuck here. I know most people would say I don't deserve either girl, and they'd be right. All I've ever wanted was to find the right person, to be in love with my best friend, to be completely and stupidly crazy about them. I've made some terrible decisions trying to chase that feeling, and now I spend 90% of my waking hours hating my life, hating what I've become, and fearing that I'll never get back what I gave up. Story 5. I had a double life being a cam girl. When I was in my 20s, I was tired of all the BS going on in my household. I needed extra cash so I wouldn't be tied down and could have the option to move out. Then a light bulb went off in my head about a conversation I had with one of my coworkers. She told me she could make more in one night than she would in a week working as a waitress. That's when I decided to become a cam girl. I filled out the awkward application which asked if I was bald, trimmed, or hairy, and if I liked DT or backdoor. At first I felt like I was signing up to be a corn star, but then I realized that I would pretty much be doing soft corn. On cam, men would pay me to talk on the phone with them for hours. They were just lonely, but they paid well to have me exclusively. I would experiment and get a little adventurous with my regulars. I would do shows where a lot of guys would pay to watch me try out a new stuffs. The money was pouring in, and it helped me get by. I would lie to my mom, telling her I was working at the convention center. I'd dress in uniform, then do my hair and makeup at the studio, put on my stockings, and go live. No one knew. It was my private double life. What worries me is that my face was on the internet, associated with something explicit. I had my profile removed long ago, but now I'm wiser, with goals and aspirations. I want to start my own business and be a socialite, but I feel as if my past could haunt me. My ratings had skyrocketed. I was on the popular list. It still worries me. I feel guilty and I can't shake the thought that it might come to light one day. I just hope it doesn't. Story 6. I faked a pregnancy and a miscarriage to everyone around me. Me and my fiance at the time had been together for a few years and were trying for a baby. We were going through a rough patch, and I convinced myself that if we had a child, something he desperately wanted, his behavior would change. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Almost immediately, I regretted everything. I still can't believe I went so far as to fake positive pregnancy tests. The guilt hit me like a freight train. I knew instantly that I could never let anyone find out, so I started crafting a long-term plan to make it seem like things just didn't work out. A quiet, natural ending instead of the truth. I told myself I'd take this secret to the grave, but it's been eating me alive ever since. What I did was terrible in a way I can't properly put into words. It's so unbelievably messed up. And the worst part is, I don't even understand why I did it. Why that was the choice I made in that moment. I don't understand myself for it. I know and fully acknowledge that I am far more than a terrible person for putting someone through that. I cannot even begin to describe how badly I feel for what I did, and I should. I've already discussed this with my therapist, and we went over the choices I had. We agreed that the best decision is to tell him when he has a moment to understand the weight of it all. I've also spoken with the people I needed to talk to in order to understand why I did these things, and I am seeking out the professionals I still need. A lot of people are only seeing this from one side, but it's important to recognize that I hurt many people in this process, whether the harm was severe or not. I had expecting parents excited for a new grandchild, friends who were thrilled for me and immediately started giving advice. I very much should feel bad about this, and I do, but all I can do now is take the right steps to repair things as best I can. There really isn't anything anyone could say to convince me not to tell him, for both our sakes. I needed to release the guilt I've been carrying for years, and that is all this post was about. Admitting what I did. After reading many of the comments and reflecting on what most people are saying, I see things from a different perspective now. I understand that bringing this up now would give him something more to grieve over, especially when he has probably already moved past it. I will continue working with my therapist on how to move forward without having to tell him. A few questions answered. 1. I am no longer with this guy, and we do not reach out to each other at all anymore. 2. My therapist did not convince me to tell him anything. I explained how I felt, and at the time I thought he would want to know. My therapist simply talked me through the risks, consequences, and how to approach it if I chose to share. That plan is obviously off the table now, so no worries there. 3. This is not a shitpost. My orientation or username has nothing to do with this. All that matters is that I do have the ability to conceive children. If I didn't, I would not be in this situation. Story 7. I'm having an affair with my married best friend. I've known her for years and have always thought she was amazing. I only really developed feelings for her last January, just as her marriage was starting to fall apart. She told me that her marriage had been a mistake, made for the wrong reasons, and that she had already cheated on him with other people. I decided not to reveal my feelings at that time because it would only complicate her life further. I was still in a relationship myself, and I figured she would be divorced soon enough, at which point I could lay everything out. What makes it even more intense is how much we see each other. She, myself, her husband, and all of our friends volunteer for the same nonprofit. I work with them all the time, and my secret feelings have started to weigh on me. Fast forward 10 months, and I'm still head over heels for her, and she's somehow still married. I've been through 2 girlfriends in that time, both of whom rightly accused me of having a crush on her. One night, we were hanging out, getting stoned, and we ended up cuddling and making out. I didn't fight it. After months of holding back, I was tired of waiting. One thing led to another, and for the past month, we've been regularly doing it. Because everyone knows we're best friends, it's relatively easy to get away with, though it still involves a lot of sneaking around. Our whole social circle is actually a mess. There's a lot of secret banging going on, and that's just the stuff I know about. Her husband is what most people would call a nice guy, but he's deeply self-centered. He's treated me like an a-hole on a couple of serious occasions, and combined with jealousy, it's made me really hate him. My best friend says she has told him she's not happy and wants a divorce. He refuses to face the fact that his marriage is a sham. She can't bring herself to walk out on him. For emotional and financial reasons I don't fully understand. I don't care that we'll end up hurting her husband. What makes me feel guilty is that I don't care. He's oblivious and seems indifferent to her happiness, so screw him anyway. I love this woman. I haven't told her yet because I don't think she's in a place where she could reciprocate right now. Honestly, I know this probably can't last and that I'm just filling a hole in her life. I don't care. She lights me up. I'm not looking for advice. I'm going to do what I want to do. I just needed somewhere to confess this secret. Story 8. I stole $600 from the safe at my previous job and was also an avid shoplifter. reposting because my phone died before I finished typing and auto-posted. This is the rest of what I meant to say. Sorry to anyone who read the first post without the full context. Alright, here it goes. When I was a teenager, I worked at a type of value general store. It's a very well-known large corporation. There's probably one in your town or within 30 minutes of you. I worked there for about a year before being promoted to manager after a previous manager quit on the spot one day. The main part of my job involved handling the cashier tills and the money in the safe. When I was being trained for the manager position by the head manager, he showed me his cash overflow container in the safe. This was an uncounted container he had started to balance cashier tills and avoid giving write-ups for small overages. For example, if a cashier was $4.38 over in their till, but the limit for a write-up was $4, we would put 38 cents, or whatever was needed, into the cash overflow container to bring the overage under the limit. I was given full permission to access this container, and all the cashiers knew about it. It was not a secret stash, but it was definitely off the books and agreed upon by everyone to keep from telling higher-ups. It helped the employees, so no one ever said a word. After a while, I started keeping a mental note of how much cash was in that container, how much it collected versus how much we took out. I realized that at times there could be as much as $60 in the overflow, completely uncounted by anyone but me. That's when I started dipping into it. I had to count the actual safe money twice each shift, and even though there was a camera pointed at the safe, if I positioned myself the right way, I could completely conceal one of my hands while I was inside it. That's how I started taking from the overflow container. Over the next year and a half, I ended up taking around $600. At the time, I was young, stupid, and always looking for extra cash wherever I could get it. No one ever suspected anything. I eventually left that job on good terms and moved on to another position, where I stopped stealing. I learned not to mess with the place that pays you, or however the saying goes. As for the shoplifting, that started during the same period I was working at the job I stole from. I never shoplifted from my own location, but after learning how some of the cameras and systems worked, I realized there was essentially no way for me to get caught as long as I stayed calm and careful. So I began stealing my essentials from that chain. Then I moved on to another chain, and then another. Eventually, I was stealing almost every product I used in my daily life. Food, gifts, clothing, everything, and I was never caught. I've stopped shoplifting now. It's incredibly easy to do, especially when money is tight. But I know that getting caught and dealing with the consequences would be far worse than just scraping by for a while. My point in sharing this is, if you're doing this kind of stuff, stop. It's a hard habit to break, but it's absolutely not worth it. I'm insanely lucky to have gotten away with what I did, and I honestly wish I had never started in the first place. Even though I stopped years ago, it's still uncomfortable walking into certain stores I used to steal from without feeling like I'm in some kind of trouble. It's just not worth it. Story 9. I want my wife's best friend really bad. My wife's best friend, Jen, is her former college roommate. She has a pretty smile, brunette hair, is very likable, roots for the same team I do, and has a great body. On the day my wife and I got married, I found myself completely distracted by Jen's bridesmaid dress. She had a very noticeable figure. I think that's when this all started. Before that, she was just a pretty face in some of my wife's pictures, someone we never really interacted with. That was quite a while ago. They used to live across the state, but her husband got a job here, so now they're literally 3 blocks away. On the day they relocated, Jen's husband was on a business trip, so I helped her unload and move boxes from their U-Haul on one of the hottest days of the year. With my wife at work, Jen and I enjoyed one-on-one time that we had never experienced before. I noticed that we were a little flirty with each other. She laughed at my jokes, played with her hair, and seemed a little nervous, but clearly enjoying our time alone. She wore these little cheer-style shorts that I couldn't stop noticing, and when I followed her up the stairs, her figure was right in my face. Nothing happened, of course, but for the next few days, she was constantly on my mind. A seed was planted. Over the last few months, we've grown closer. Her toddler clearly prefers me to anyone else, and she loves to remind me of it whenever we all get together. We do fun double date nights, and there was a beach weekend late that summer where we all had a blast. Every now and then, however, I find myself in situations where I'm alone with Jen, dropping her off to get her car fixed, or taking our kids for a walk in the strollers while our spouses stay home getting things done. These are the moments we often share. We always have stimulating conversations with lots of laughter. I love when she walks in front of me, usually in her short shorts or yoga pants. I wonder if she knows I'm checking her out or if she does it on purpose. Sometimes I swear she turns around smiling, as if trying to catch me staring. We text occasionally now, which we never really used to. Maybe I'm reading too much into it since we're always teasing each other in some way. These little games we play seem innocent on the surface, but she has a way of staying in my mind. When we were at the beach, she wore a dress that was a little baggy up top. While we were building sandcastles with our kids, she would lean over, and I caught glimpses of her nipples several times. I have an intense desire to be with Jen physically, but I know it would be morally wrong. I do love my wife, yet this woman ignites a passion in me I can't fully explain. I feel a lot of guilt over these feelings. Neither of us has ever made a move on the other, and I don't think it would happen. Sometimes I wonder if women just like to tease. I feel, at times, as if she's teasing me, and other times she barely pays attention. I do crave our alone time, but it's never something that can be planned. It just kind of happens, and fortunately for our spouses, it doesn't happen very often. This is driving me absolutely crazy. Has anyone else been through something like this or is currently going through it? I get intimate with my wife, and all I can think about is Jen, her figure, her perfectly feminine, soft-looking feet, freshly painted, and how I'd like to kiss them. My favorite fantasy is going over to her house to give her a full-body massage while James is away on business. I know it's stupid. Sometimes I wish they had never moved here in the first place. Story 10. I had scammed my grandma out of over $3,000 and then pretended to be her savior. I spent thousands of dollars on electronics, in-game goods, and other things using my grandma's card over the course of several weeks. When she noticed the charges, she called my mom for help. When she came to me asking, I initially said no, but I offered to help. I went to her house and had her show me the bills. I told her I would call the company, and I did. I came back and told her that the charges could not be refunded for unknown reasons, but that I had canceled her card so she wouldn't be charged anymore. She thanked me, saying how much I had helped her since she could have lost much more, and even offered to give me money. I declined. I've been bottling this up for a while. I was 15 at the time, and she was 78. I still feel horrible, disgusted, and ashamed about it to this day. I cannot believe I did that. I still visit her regularly, and even though this happened almost 2 years ago, it feels like yesterday. Update. I've talked with my mother, and she said she's disappointed, but I told her I'm willing to get a job and pay my grandma back. She said she won't be helping me with the apology or explanations, though she's willing to contribute a little. The rest is on me. I'd like to thank some of you for the advice. I have a job interview at a cafe in a few days. Story 11. I cheated on my girlfriend 3 times and have 3 other big secrets I'm keeping from her. I am a 25-year-old recovering alcoholic. For the sake of this story, I will call the other women Girl 1, Girl 2, and Girl 3. This all started a couple of years ago when I went home from a party with Girl 1, a coworker. We had been drinking heavily, and my long-distance girlfriend and I had been going through serious problems. Girl 1 and I ended up being so drunk that the most we were able to do was making out and a blowy. I woke up the next morning sober, bare, and full of regret. I snuck out and never saw Girl 1 again, since she left for another job shortly after. I convinced myself that telling my girlfriend would push her toward hurting herself because she is very emotionally unstable due to depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. 7 months passed, and I was still living with the guilt of what I had done. I was promoted into Girl 1's old position, and then I hired Girl 2. She immediately began dating one of my coworkers, but their relationship crashed and burned after a week. I had become friends with Girl 2, and after the breakup, she was a mess. She asked me to come over because she had no one else to talk to. She was drunk when I arrived and pressured me into drinking with her. I blacked out and woke up in her bed. We had banged. I snuck out and walked home, only to discover that my girlfriend had come up the night before to surprise me and was asleep in my bed. Mortified, I told her I had crashed at a friend's place. I beat myself up over everything and eventually realized I had to tell her. But when I did, I told her we had only made out and given blowy. I also told her about kissing girl 1, but not about the blowy. She broke up with me, and girl 2 immediately started trying to make me her boyfriend. But I begged my girlfriend to give me another chance, and she agreed on the condition that I give up alcohol. I stopped drinking, and everything was fine for a while. Then, about 3 months later, I foolishly got drunk at another work social event and slept with another coworker, girl 3. Girl 3 is friends with girl 2 and told her what happened. Girl 2, who was in love with me, sent incriminating screenshots to my girlfriend through Facebook showing that I had slept with both of them. I had access to my girlfriend's Facebook. So I deleted the screenshots before she saw them and told girls 2 and 3 that my girlfriend had seen them but still wanted to be with me. They believed it. Now, I am still in a relationship, but I have to keep girl 2, girl 3, and all my coworkers who know everything away from my girlfriend. It has been 6 months since all of that happened, and I have not touched alcohol since. I am thinking about proposing to my girlfriend of 2.5 years soon. I regret everything I have done and have been trying to better myself in every way. I know alcohol is not entirely to blame, but I do believe I have changed. I want to tell her everything, but she once told me, after I confessed to kissing 2 girls, that if something like that happened again, she would spiral out of control and might hurt herself. She is the kindest, most loving person I have ever met, and she does not deserve what I have done to her. I know I should tell her the truth so she can leave me, but I love her, and I am terrified she might hurt herself if I do. We plan on getting married and starting a family soon. I do not know what I hope to gain from this confession, but no one in my life knows the full story except the people reading this. I know I am a jerk, and I am trying to fix it. My 3 other secrets, which should not be overlooked, are: 1. I cheated and drank a few times after promising I would not, though I resisted temptation on other occasions. 2. My girlfriend is a devout Christian, and I have been pretending to share her faith to stay with her. Otherwise, I believe she would not remain with me. 3. Before I met my girlfriend, I experimented with men in college and bottomed for a guy I met on Tinder in my mom's old minivan. I generally try almost everything once, so I decided to give it a shot. I did not enjoy it and did not do it again. If she knew, she would likely not be okay with it. I realize this may be considered beyond the bounds of exploration, but I believe it is relevant given my girlfriend's beliefs and the fact that I have kept it a secret. Story 12. My boss and I have a secret relationship. I am a 22-year-old woman and have been working for this business for 2 years. I have 2 bosses. One is my immediate supervisor, and the other, a 43-year-old man, handles tasks that do not directly affect me. Over time, we have become very close friends. He confessed that he was going through a divorce, and I shared my own mental health struggles with him, including being an essay survivor and dealing with bulimia. When I first met him, I instantly liked his personality. I could tell he was just like me. We started hanging out and doing casual, friendly activities, never going to each other's houses or anything, but we talked for hours. I have never been one for cliches, but now I understand them. We clicked, and I realized I had been missing out on someone like him my whole life. He respected my boundaries. He even helped create some, given our circumstances, such as always letting me make the first move. He gave me a new perspective on my trauma and tried to understand my issues, even when he couldn't fully. I loved helping him with the stresses of his divorce and being the person he trusted to vent to. I taught him what a healthy relationship could look like, since I knew his wife had been his first serious relationship. He could see me for who I truly am, and I could see him. I had never felt anyone could do that besides my counselor. He would make me laugh when I was crying, and sometimes we laughed so hard that we both cried. No matter what kind of hell I was going through, seeing him made it better. We had even told each other that we loved each other once. As obvious as it is now that I was in love with him the whole time, I didn't realize it then. I had a long-term girlfriend anyway. One moment came while we were sitting in his car talking. We both went quiet, and there was a tension between us. Given our situation, I think we both mentally decided not to kiss in that moment, but I knew I wanted him then. On my birthday, he gave me a necklace and explained the symbols on it as a reminder of how strong and brave I am, and that I am the only person I will ever need. He also wrote me the sweetest card. I couldn't make things work with my girlfriend. She cared more about her friends than being there for me anyway. I fit into her happily ever after plans as a nice, attractive, and friendly girlfriend that she would eventually marry. With her, I felt like I always had to be put together and happy, maintain good family relationships, and never have weird thoughts or ideas. I had to be basic, and I'm far from that. I eventually left her, and she yelled and yelled at me, insulting me and revealing a side I had always known she suppressed. That night, I went to dinner with my boss. When we walked out to the car, we kissed. It was a fiery and passionate kiss. We moved slowly, but there had been a buildup of tension between us for months. We went to the work building after hours and slowly undressed each other, savoring every moment. That was the first time I had ever made love. Yes, in the office, LOL. We have been in a relationship for 3 months now. We push each other to grow in so many ways. He is moving toward a career change he has always wanted, and I am going to PA school. We think very highly of each other, and we are each other's safety net. Some of my friends and family know about us, but I generally like to keep our relationship private. What we have is too special, and people are often so quick to judge based on surface-level things. I know this is long, so thank you for reading. I have been wanting to shout this to the world. Story 13. I discovered my mother-in-law's deepest secret, and I was better off not knowing. It was my mother-in-law's birthday yesterday, and in anticipation of her birthday, we celebrated with a small family-only party on Saturday. After almost a year of following social distancing guidelines, my mother-in-law decided to ignore them for once and invited all of her family. She requested that anyone feeling sick, running a temperature, or simply uncomfortable attending should stay home. My wife and I decided to go. It was a great time. There was food and drink, and people were talking and laughing. It was really nice. At some point during the party, however, the drinking got a little heavy. I decided to abstain from drinking any further, as I would be driving home that night, and one more beer was enough for me to remain legally sober by the time we left. As with any family, politics was a sensitive subject. When the conversation shifted in that direction, a large part of the group went to the basement and living room to play board games and video games. Naturally, I stayed in the kitchen because I love a good debate, and I was still eating. It was just me, my mother-in-law, her sister Laura, and her brother who remained. Somehow, the conversation turned to intimacy, taboos, and other things we had heard about through media. It was a fascinating discussion, but after so much drinking, Laura had to go to the bathroom and ended up being gone for a prolonged period. I was left alone with my mother-in-law and her brother, and as we talked, they continued to drink. I don't know how we got there, but I found myself listening to their confession. My mother-in-law and her brother had engaged in inappropriate relations in Mexico. What made it worse was that they spoke of it without regret. The only acknowledgement of wrongdoing was in the eyes of society. Otherwise, they spoke of it fondly. My mother-in-law confessed that she married my father-in-law when she was 20 because of a pregnancy scare. At the time, she secretly feared it might have resulted from a relapse into that past relationship while she was dating my father-in-law. Fortunately, it never did, and they abandoned the practice. I left that night, wishing I had just gone to the other room when everyone else did. Story 14. I secretly can't stand my sister, and everyone thinks we're best friends. To the outside world, my sister and I are super close. We go out together, post cute photos, tag each other in memes. People always say they wish they had a sibling bond like ours. But here's the truth. I can't stand her. She's manipulative in a way no one else seems to notice. She plays the victim in every situation, twisting stories to make herself look innocent and me look like the bad guy. She talks behind people's backs constantly, including mine, then acts sweet to their faces. She drains the energy from every room, yet somehow always walks away as the favorite. I've spent years hiding how I really feel to avoid being labeled the problem child in the family. My parents adore her. Even when she messes up, she is forgiven instantly. If I make the slightest mistake, I get lectured. Sometimes I fantasize about cutting ties completely, just disappearing, not responding, not pretending anymore. But the guilt eats me alive because she's still my sister. And sometimes she is nice. Sometimes she actually feels like family. But most of the time, I'm just exhausted from pretending I love being around her. I've never told anyone this until now, and admitting it feels awful. It feels wrong and ugly. but it's the truth I've been carrying around for years. Story 15. I am secretly messaging my ex from 7 years ago. My ex, let's call him Will, and I met around 7 years ago. There was a significant age difference between us, which would matter later on, though it didn't at the start. We met because we worked together. After our shifts, we would grab a table at the cafe, have a few coffees, smoke a few cigarettes, and talk about things we liked. We bonded over our mutual love of certain musicians, books, and other common interests. Eventually, we started hanging out outside of work. I lived a 10-minute walk from our workplace, and he was a short train ride away, so it was convenient. One day at his house, one thing led to another, and we began seeing each other regularly outside work. We often started around 5 in the morning, spending the night at his house, then catching separate taxis to work and pretending not to have seen each other when our boss was around, who was none the wiser. We got a bit of a thrill from the secrecy of it all. The relationship grew intense. We were in love, passionately so, and we spent blissful days together, escaping from the world, all that corny stuff. We would write letters to each other, which was a lovely ritual. We would slip the letters to one another at work. Sometimes, he would take someone's order, slip the letter into the till with their cash, and remind me to count the register. I would find the letter while counting and cherish every single one. I still have a few of them. Our relationship never really crossed into serious territory, and I think that was a problem for both of us. The age difference definitely played a role, along with our own personal issues. We didn't know who we were or what we wanted from life. We broke up and got back together countless times over a couple of years until we finally ended things for good. And it was ugly. Things were thrown by me. There were tears, alcohol, and all the cliché chaos of a young, messy breakup. I was hideously, violently angry and bitter for years afterward. I used to fantasize about running into him on the street just so I could slap him and tell him what a jerk he was. But recently, I realized I'm not angry anymore. The things that mattered then just don't matter now. And I finally understood how good it feels to forgive, something I never really grasped before, not from pacifists, not from religious people, not from anyone. About 6 months ago, I sent him a message on Facebook. He had come up in my suggested friends, and I had a momentary lapse of judgment. I asked how he was and apologized for messaging him, saying he should feel free to ignore it. It ate at me for days that I had even dared to message him, and I silently prayed he wouldn't reply. Eventually, I forgot about the message altogether. Until 2 weeks ago, when I finally got his reply. He told me how he had been in satisfying detail and asked if he could send me a letter over Facebook. I, of course, said yes. When I received his letter, my whole world just crumbled. He spoke about being in a relationship, buying a house, thinking about children, and then described a meltdown he had with a friend in which I was mentioned. He wrote about having to choose between love, passion, and that whimsical idea of being whole with someone while ignoring the rest of the world, or being normal, doing the right thing, being content, mildly happy, and following all the expected paths in life. I identified with this deeply. I also have a partner, plans for the future, a career path laid out, but I can't help feeling somewhat empty. I'm the flighty one. I could say screw it and drop everything in a moment, and I have to wrestle with myself not to. I don't believe my ex and I will or even could get back together. That isn't the point. What unsettles me is knowing that real consuming love is possible, that I could be happy instead of simply content. Will knows this too, or at least that's what I gathered from his letter. I tried dozens of times to write something back to him, but I couldn't. Finally, I asked him to meet in person for closure, and he tentatively agreed. It has been 7 years. Perhaps I'll see him and think, what was I thinking? Though that's unlikely. Either way, I feel this is the best way to sort things out. I am too consumed by this thing that hasn't existed in more than half a decade. I feel guilty because I won't be telling my current partner about this meeting. It's so personal and private to me that I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. I also don't want him knowing because I am still very much in love with Will, even though we are just getting coffee, looking at each other one last time before going our separate ways, accepting mediocrity and burning each other's letters. Even so, I feel like I'm living a double life, being so in love with him after all these years while I have a long-term partner now. I worry that I've become cold or distant to my current SO, but since our relationship is largely devoid of romance, I don't even know how much emotion is enough. Maybe what I'm really confessing is that I've fantasized about having Will back, even for just one night, just to remind myself that beauty and romance still exist in the world. Maybe, deep down, it's the idea of doing something I shouldn't that truly tempts me. Reality. I'll see him in person, maybe have a glass of wine or two, and tell him how I feel. He will do the same, and then we will part ways. I will live the rest of my life wishing things could have been different. Story 16. I secretly want my neighbor's child to be taken away or shut up forever. For context, I live in a semi-detached house with thin walls. I am a young adult recovering from glandular fever and dealing with chronic fatigue, and I'm writing this from my bed while my neighbor's 2-year-old screams non-stop at midnight. It has been going on for about an hour and a half. Their child sounds unbearable at all hours of the day and night. I genuinely feel for the parents, but I do not know how much longer I can cope with the constant screaming. It wakes me at 4 in the morning, and once I am awake, I struggle to fall asleep again while the noise continues. It often seems like no one is comforting the child, and I feel guilty for thinking this way. But it is overwhelming. Last week, they were away, and I felt a sense of normalcy return. My sleep, finally, started to improve. Now, everything is back to constant exhaustion and sleepless nights. I just wish something could be done, especially if there is a medical reason behind it. Story 17. I had a secret vasectomy under the nose of my wife and family. People often ask me when my wife and I are going to have children. We've been married 6 years, so everyone assumes it's about time. My usual answer is never, because we can't afford it. But that's only part of the truth. The real reason is that I secretly had a vasectomy 4 years ago. Neither my wife nor my family knows. I made that decision because I'm convinced that if I had a child, I would be responsible for that child's guaranteed misery. Let me explain. Having children where I'm from is expensive. To cover their medical and dental needs, to give them solid educational opportunities, to house them in a place with culture and amenities, to help them discover their strengths, and to make sure they're not left behind socially, all of that costs a significant amount. I calculated that it would be more than $1 million in today's money to raise one child through their first 20 years. Some people have that kind of money or can earn it within a reasonable time frame. I don't, and I can't. So, if I were to have a child, I would be knowingly denying them the things they need to begin adult life in a competitive world. They would face constant setbacks and frustrations brought on by financial limitations. They would miss out on experiences, travel, varied hobbies, exposure to excellence, and high-achieving environments that help a young person understand their place in the world. They would have to chase those experiences later at great personal cost during years that are already difficult enough. But that is not the worst of it. Many people come from hardship and work wisely, enough to elevate themselves, gaining the experiences their more privileged peers were simply given. My own shortcomings, however, would prevent this. I procrastinate badly and struggle with motivation. I am neither tall nor athletic. I am not good-looking. I lack natural social ease. I have no talent for performance or the creative arts. I do not excel in the sciences. Unless my wife were fertilized by a man who possesses at least most of these qualities, the first 4 being essential, my child would inherit my limitations, and they are crippling. He would grow up anxious, inexperienced, and unworldly, aware that he is missing out yet unable to elevate himself. He would remain a virgin well into college. He would have no sense of good taste. He would watch young adults from better stock leave him behind. Those children would have seen more at 17 than he could hope to see at 40, and these shortcomings would consume him. He would be doomed to shovel menial work in the professional world, always struggling to stay ahead of the curve and wearing down his body with stress. He would never have the chance to discover or develop what he is truly good at. As he realized his low position in the social hierarchy, as he failed again and again to attract partners, and as he recognized the extent of the opportunities denied to him, his difficult childhood would not be transcended, but painfully compounded. His many failings and motivational struggles would spiritually hollow him out and doom him to become grist in the economic mill. His life would be a field of gray despair, punctuated only by enough points of light to remind him of what he is missing. My despair, my longing, my awkwardness, my fury at being left behind, my misdirected energy, my sheer mediocrity, all of it would become his. But the consequences would be even worse in a world far harsher on working-class children than it was 30 years ago. And I would have knowingly created him. How could I deny a charge of child abuse? I could not. It would be a lesser form of abuse than some others, but abuse nonetheless. So I removed myself from the reproductive pool. I had it done while overseas. My wife is on the pill, which she hates, and I wish I could tell her she no longer needs it. But I will not. She would leave me. She comes from a fairly successful family and she wants children. She has high expectations. I am fairly sure she believes that when the time comes, I will advance my career and become a hard-working father. If she knew the truth of my inability to do any of that, she would cast me aside. My mother and father tell hopeful stories about family Christmases and so on. They adore my wife and believe I have made an excellent match to start a family. But they will not be getting grandchildren from me. And if he has any sense, they will not be getting any from my brother either. When I was sitting in the surgery waiting room, I was terrified that I would regret the decision for the rest of my life. But I do not. I feel enormous relief that there is now no chance at all, that I will watch a child confront the dawning realization that he is destined to be a worthless, struggling loser. A mediocrity desperate to find a partner, stay employed, and slog onward in the shadow of those whose temperament and opportunities allow them to enjoy the bounties of life. Story 18. I secretly dislike most of my immediate family, and it's so hard to contain my rage. We'll start with my mom, since she is the biggest culprit. She is the kind of pushover who will believe anything a man she likes tells her. If her boyfriend at the time says, "Children are second-class citizens," she will believe it and treat my sister and me poorly. Not abusive in a violent sense, but in a lawful, calculated sort of way, and completely alter her parenting to appease him. Because she has no backbone, she relies on her boyfriend for everything, to the point where he is effectively calling all the shots. It gets worse with her current husband, different from the first, who believes that parents should seldom speak with their children. Great advice, right? Anyway, he is completely bonkers and believes that the USA, where we live, is just as perfect as it was when he was a child. No housing market crash, no inflation, no 9/11. Nothing bad ever happened. This attitude led my mom to push me, a guy with a low-wage job and little money, to move out of the house when I was 18 and into the first apartment she found while searching for cheap places. Naturally, she shoved me into a dump full of the worst people alive. And there I was, a guy with no experience living alone, forced to manage an apartment by myself with no job and no car. Long story short, my sister trashed my SUV and my mom sold it for pocket change because she is, well, not very smart. Great so far, right? But as a wise man once said, but wait, there's more. I ran into money problems when my electric bill tripled, out of nowhere, might I add, and asking for help felt like trying to plot a heist on Fort Knox. Her husband thinks I do not need assistance, even though I am living off government support and scraping by on a shoestring budget that is always stretched from check to check. When I told her how terrible the apartment was, and I later learned it has a reputation for ignoring complaints, she would gaslight me. "Are you sure you aren't just imagining things?" she would ask. "Are you probably just too sensitive?" she would continue. She is lucky I did not cut her out of my life right then. I still plan to, once I get on my feet. My dad, God, he is in a similar boat, letting whatever wife or girlfriend he had at the time walk all over me. He would swing from, "I am super responsible," to, "well, whatever," without hesitation. He even tried to get me to smoke pot with him. He was absent from my life and my sister's life for years. Off doing drugs, partying, selling drugs, getting tangled up with the law, and surrounding himself with the worst kinds of people. For a long time, he would get his paycheck and immediately blow it on drugs, cigarettes, and instant pleasures. Video games, consoles, junk you do not buy when you are living from check to check. His finances were always feast or famine. If you graphed his bank balance, it would look like a cliff dropping at a steep 90-degree angle. It was that bad. It was frustrating because his house was a mess, and for a while, I had to spend a month living there. Part of some weird arrangement my mom and dad had when I was a kid. One of the houses did not even have heating or central air. It felt like we were living in a shed. I cannot stand it because my family, mainly my delusional grandma, would say things like, "You'll grow up to be just like your dad," with this awful, smug grin. as if my only goal in life is to become some infamous drug dealer who somehow also keeps a day job. My grandma, whom I live with, moving soon, has always been a selfish a-hole. I just hadn't seen it firsthand. She is the type of person who, if you schedule a birthday on the Super Bowl, will tell you to reschedule because her priorities are that messed up. I had always believed she was smart, kind, caring, and virtuous, but she is just a selfish, obese a-hole. She is overweight and acts as if the world should accommodate her size. She complains about her knees but refuses to change her diet of Big Macs and liters of ice cream. It is hard to feel sympathy for someone who does this to themselves. I hadn't realized any of this until I lived with her. She had bought 2 dogs before I moved in, though she always hated them and frequently made it clear she disliked them. I often avoided going to her house if I could. She bought them because of what I call emptiness syndrome, which she refers to with the romanticized term uwu depression. She did this because, as a boomer, she's foolish enough to think that owning dogs in that tiny house of hers would magically fix everything. Well, newsflash, it did nothing. Determined to prove me and everyone else wrong, she even bought another one out of spite. This dog is so unruly that it pushed me, someone who used to love animals, to the point of having thoughts I never imagined. It keeps me up constantly, wakes me at ridiculous hours of the day, and barks at me for no reason. Her solution is the ridiculous pet him, as if petting a dog that's ready to bite me the second I get close would somehow make him happy or understand that I live there. I have no idea how that logic is supposed to work. I haven't tried it because I don't want him biting my arm and me reacting instinctively, only for my grandma to kick me out for defending myself. And this isn't even the worst of it. She actively tries to ruin my brother-in-law, her granddaughter's husband, by attempting to get him fired from jobs and block him from his dream of becoming a police officer. She's vile, and I have zero sympathy for her since she does all of this with full intent. Now she actively tries to keep me down, pretending I am completely unable to live alone and need someone to dictate my life. She wants people to play into her stupid depression and attempt to raise me, as if she can undo her mistakes with my dad and uncles through me. My sister isn't so bad. Despite trashing my SUV and not helping me much as I try to get on my feet, she hasn't done much to actively annoy me, though she doesn't really improve my life either. She pretends to be more helpful than she actually is, and it's painfully cringeworthy. I wouldn't be surprised if she's been telling people all about my disorders since she couldn't keep a secret to save her life. Because my friends have recently started treating me like some mentally disabled vegetable. With all these factors combined, it's easy to see why I get depressive episodes and maintain a terrible sleep schedule. To add insult to injury, my grandparents only have DSL, not fiber optic. The house is a pigsty that smells terrible, and the dogs are constantly barking at everything. I'm just lucky I don't do drugs at this point. Story 19. I have been lying to everyone in my life for the past 8 years, and I do not know how to reveal my darkest secret. When I was 18 years old, I had a one-night stand with a girl. I am not proud of the decisions I made as a young adult, but we all have to live with the consequences of our actions. She became pregnant and told me I was the father during an uncomfortable phone call. Again, I am not proud of my behavior. I was a scumbag and asked if she was going to have an abortion. She said she intended to keep the child, and we agreed to disagree. I did not speak to her for about a month after that. The next time we were in contact, she told me that her aunt would take full care of the baby and that we would need to sign adoption papers listing her as the child's legal guardian. I drove to her, paid the court fees to make the papers official, and signed my parental rights away. I have heard from the mother a few times since the birth and received some pictures, but the child lives across the country, and I have no way to be involved in her life. Now, as of today, it has been 7 years since the child was born, and I still have had no contact with her or her mother's family. My friends and family do not know about the child, and my fiancé does not know either. I'm trying to decide whether it is in my best interest to tell everyone in my life or to keep it a secret. I know that sounds like a scumbag move. I know I have to tell my fiancé before we get married, but I am terrified that she will leave me when she finds out how badly I have neglected my child for their entire life. Part of me wants people to tell me how horrible I am, but what I really need is advice on what to do. I feel lost and confused, and I needed to get this out and seek some help. Edit. I plan to tell my fiancé before we get married. I just have a crippling fear of her reaction. Story 20. My husband and I are trying to have a baby, but I am secretly taking the pill. I have been married to my husband for 8 years and with him for 15. We are both 39. We always wanted to have a family, but between the recession and other circumstances, we put it off. We planned to start a family in 2014. We bought a house, our careers were thriving, and everything seemed ready. Then my husband was arrested for CP. I stood by him because I thought it had to be some kind of mistake. I thought I knew the man. But as his case concluded, I realized that maybe I did not know him at all. He received probation and had to register as an S offender, though he is not on the public list. I considered leaving him, but I am almost 40 and I know my pool of potential partners has shrunk. I decided to stay. He wanted to celebrate not going to jail by having a baby. The thought of having a child with him is deeply troubling. I know I could never fully trust him, even though psychologists have said he is not a predator. I have known him since elementary school and I love him, but I do not think I can have a child with him. I believe it would be wrong to bring a baby into the world under these circumstances. I cringe at the thought that people might one day find out he is a registered S offender and direct their judgment or anger toward our child. I do want children, but I am too old to have one naturally, and I do not want to raise a child on my own. I know I am no longer considered desirable at my age, so I just accept my husband. Story 21. I secretly despise my best friend. I have had this friend whom I will call N. I have known N for about 10 years. N was always out of my league, but I had feelings for her for about 9 years, believing that pure chivalry might win her over. We were best friends for about 4 years after we first met in school, around when we were 7. In the 5th grade, people found out about my feelings and the news spread like wildfire. By the next week, everyone knew. The bullying escalated to a whole new level. N even switched sides and began constantly bullying me, which felt like 1,000 stabs in the back. Around that time, I also began being abused by my older brother and my parents, so having no friends made everything worse. Because of all these events, N became a major reason I developed depression. A year later, in the 6th grade, I went to the hospital to have my long-lasting chest pain checked. While I was there, my phone rang. N had texted me. "I saw you going to the hospital. Good. It's where you belong." I was crying. I left the hospital diagnosed with cardiomegaly, and not long after, I was diagnosed with bipolar II disorder. I did not tell anyone at school, not even N. She would constantly call it attention-seeking phases. I only told her about it 2 years later, in the 8th grade, and even then, she did not take it seriously. Sometimes, N would even join the bully groups and force me to declare my love for her in front of them, which led to frequent beatings. The abuse at home, the abuse at school, and everything involving her led to my first of many attempts at self-harm. N did not care. She was all I could think about during what I believed would be my last moments. After those long, hellish 8 years of elementary school, I became wiser, stronger, quieter, and more sarcastic. But my depression is still here even after 10 years. I am 17 now, and my self-esteem is buried somewhere in the earth's core. N made me hate myself for being what I am, different. Her first words to me in high school were, "I'm so glad I don't have to look at you for another 8 years, since we attend the same school, but are in different classes." I felt devastated, but also, strangely, free. Then, a few months later, N showed up at my doorstep crying, with bruised and bloody wrists. She had started having problems with the same friends from elementary school, along with her parents' divorce and other issues. She spent hours apologizing to me, saying she finally understood. I spent hours comforting her while I treated her cuts. For the next 6 months or so, we would constantly go out and bond as much as we could. And sometimes referred to me as her brother, though at times she hinted at something more. However, when she was pressured by her peers, she would deny our closeness, saying things like, "God forbid," or something similar. I couldn't tell her to just leave me alone because that's not how I am. Now, she has made me promise not to let my depression win. She made me promise to stay alive, but she does not lift a finger to comfort me. Unlike me, who spends hours and hours comforting her every time something goes wrong, because I do not want her to feel how I have been feeling for so long. It feels like she does not care, but still, I do. And when I see her outside, when we go out together, I feel an explosion of emotions in my chest. I feel so much hate. I feel agitated. I snap really easily. Sometimes, I even have nightmares of myself murdering her. I feel love and pure hatred at the same time. Story 22. I have a shitty secret life that I can't stop and I hate it. I've been married for 22 years to a woman. She is sweet and I love her, but she has some emotional challenges, including bipolar tendencies with a slight side of schizophrenia, paranoia, and so on. Life has been hard. I used to be a strong person who thought he could handle anything, and I have been her support through all of this. I have always been attracted to both men and women, but particularly to very attractive men. When I was 19, a friend from another country stayed with me. He was German and extremely good-looking, which made me very attracted to him. We talked a lot about physical intimacy, which increased my desire for him. He usually slept on the couch while I took the queen-size bed. One night, I wanted him so badly that I deliberately spilled tea on the couch. When he asked where he could sleep, I told him he might as well sleep with me. He hesitantly agreed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I slowly crept closer to him until we were spooning. I was aroused, and when I put my arm around him, his hand guided mine, and I realized he was also aroused. I had never experienced being with a man before, and it was both shocking and exhilarating. We ended up pleasuring each other, and this continued for several months. We both felt conflicted. Part of us hated what we were doing, but part of us loved it. After my friend moved back to Europe, I only had 2 brief encounters with other men before stopping and eventually getting married. During my marriage, I've had some very close male friends. There was never any inappropriate activity, but I loved them deeply, and they loved me. My wife was always jealous because she recognized the strong connection I had with these men, and I think she suspected there was more going on, even though there wasn't. Maybe it was emotional, but nothing physical. Anyway, 2 years ago, I had a breakdown and tried to hurt myself. I would never tell my wife, but it feels like all these years of managing her mental health struggles have taken a toll on mine. I survived the attempt, but since then I have felt a growing desire to explore my attraction to men. I've met a few friends with benefits and we meet regularly. I am 48, and these 2 men are 23 and 25. They enjoy being with me, and there are no expectations. I just needed to get that off my chest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.